No, the clock on the wall says it's 6:34. I think it's close enough to 2 o'clock that we can go ahead and start. If you would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is July the 19th, and it's Public Facilities Committee, Beaufort County, and I believe that we've probably done the notifications for FOIA correctly.
Yes, sir.
I see a nod from Sarah, that's good. And before we get started, let's go around the room and just to introduce, everybody knows who is here. And I'll start with Van and we'll go around this way.
Van Willis, Town of Port Royal.
Okay.
Lolita Huckabee with Low Country Inside Track, sitting in for Joe Kroll.
Okay.
Tiffany Vaughn, Beaufort County Clerk of Council's Office. Brenna Owen, Clerk of Council's Office.
I'm Stu Rodman. Sarah?
Sarah Brock, Clerk to Council.
For Taylor, County Attorney.
Whitney Richland, Deputy County Administrator.
Jared Fraley, ACA Engineer.
Audrey Antonacci, Beaufort County.
Tom Kevany, Beaufort County.
Eric Greenway, Beaufort County Administrator.
Okay. And yours?
York Glover, District 3 Council.
Good to have you with us. Okay, the first thing we have is the approval of the agenda. And there's a request that we move the executive session up because we have some people joining us, and rather than keep them waiting. So my thought would be that we would move items 16 and 17, which is the executive session and any matters arising out of executive session, to occur between items 6 and 7, because we may have some other people that are already here for item 6, and the rest of the items I think are pretty much within the family. We have a couple items to add, but they all, I believe, fall under the category of receiving legal advice.
Yes, one is a receipt of legal advice relating to pending claims, and the other is a discussion of a person, an employee regulated by a public body.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Brian, second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. Next item we have is the approval of our minutes from May 17th for the committee. Hope you've had a chance to look at those and pass along any corrections. But, I'm sorry?
Approval of the minutes.
Oh, approval, yeah. So I need a motion.
Agenda.
I'm sorry, I thought we approved the agenda.
Approve amended agenda.
Oh, I have to approve the amended agenda. Good thing we had our clerks here to keep me on a straight and narrow. Now I need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll move it again, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll second it again.
Again, okay. I assume there's no objections, and if so, the amended agenda is approved as amended. That does move us to the minutes of May 17th. Look for a motion to approve those.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Objections? Seeing none, the minutes from May 17th are approved without objection. That takes us to item number 6, which is a discussion on our 10-year transportation plan and how it may or may not impact the possibility of a referendum in the future. And let me try to state where I think we are, and Jared can correct me if I get off base. But the county is in the middle of putting together the 10-year transportation plan, which actually was a lot of dollars, and the term the Beaufort billion got coined as part of that. But I think the number, actually, the first pass of it was really about $1.25 billion over the 10 years in current dollars. And relative to a potential referendum, we've talked about this at committee in the past, and the council's direction was that not that we would do one, but that we needed to continue to evaluate one. I also had conversations with several of the mayors that acknowledged that probably does need one. And what I see kind of happening is that we'll have a short discussion on it today, just so everybody's up to speed on, what the dollars are that are floating around. That would give the staff a couple months to actually do a lot of detail work, because if in fact we were to do one, there's a fair amount of work that's required in order to develop items. And in doing it that way, we'll allow some time so that it's not interfering or confusing the public with the referendum on loss that is currently in process. So what I'm going to do is just walk through it. Basically, it's a slightly updated presentation that I used with the mayors, and I think I've shared with council in the past. But just to give you kind of an overview of what it looks like. So you should have on your screen the first of 5 pages, and this is just capturing the dollars. And go to the one that has Northern Beaufort County, I think. Do we have the same sequence? Here, I can read from the screen. Get the right slide up there. It's possible when I sent it over I had it wrong. Okay, here we go. So if you kind of look at the northern part of the county and you look in millions of dollars, down the left-hand side are kind of a rough cut at what are the various projects that were identified. And then there's a large number of smaller ones, but all of that adds up to about $790 million. And on the right-hand side are some observations. When you look across the county, it's a higher cost per capita or per person in the northern part of the county than the southern part of the county. It's also got a higher cost per vehicle mile. And it strikes me that other funding avenues are somewhat limited. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt real quick, I'm looking at your list, and I'm not sure I agree that some of these projects are necessary, and that would change your calculations regarding cost per capita, cost per vehicle, everything else. So I think we need to think more about what you have on the list here.
Yeah, this is Brian. You're correct. This is just a starting point. It's not saying that these are the ones. I think there'll be a lot of refining as we go forward. And you're correct. If
well, then how can we talk about the high cost per capita or the high cost per vehicle mile if we can't agree on what miles we're talking about?
Well, I think in terms of the initial pass from staff, that is a correct number. Now, if items fall out, then of course that would totally influence the number you're talking about. But it is the calculated number based on what's in the 10-year plan that's going to the Planning Commission for the comprehensive plan. So I don't disagree with you, but I think it is what it is as a first pass. It also strikes me that we're going to have lower impact fees in this part of the county. There's some limitations on where we're going to find other funding. And my personal observation is that unlike the Bluffton area with its high growth, we don't see a lot of pressing requirements, although it doesn't mean that there are some that are very pressing, of course. And a breakdown of where those pieces fall, you can see the percentages, but about 71% has to do with access management, 12% for widening, 8% for streetscape, and 5% for new roads. So if I think about it in terms of a potential referendum at some point, there's not a lot of other funding alternatives. And if you took the current value of what is being collected on the sales tax and looked at over 8 years and assumed 40% went to the northern part of the county, that would be about $145 million. Remains to be seen whether that's a priority from a political standpoint to the folks to the north. Next slide, please. Okay, just kind of looking at Hilton Head, and it's got some pieces in there relative to what happens in William Hilton Parkway and the 278 corridor beyond what is in the 278 corridor project. And there may be a piece that's been subsequently added, has to do with the Seapine Circle, which may be reaching capacity. But given that we've got the corridor piece taking care of most of what's needed, that tends to be a little bit smaller number. Of course, there's a lower cost per capita, lower cost per vehicle mile. Not a lot of impact fees because there's low growth on Hilton Head. Some funding will tend to be available. I don't see a lot of pressing requirements at this point in time. But what they do spend, what's in the plan, would be a high capacity increase and fairly low on access management. So if you allocated 10% of the referendum, that would be about $35 million. It tends to be needed for passage, so it has to be a good case to be made. But I think the county's been very generous in terms of approving the last referendum, and therefore I think Hilton Head is a strong case to be made that they'll probably be pretty supportive because because the corridor got done. That brings us then to the Bluffton side. Third slide, if you would. If you can center that, please. Okay, now this is kind of a look at the arterials, and there's a couple interesting pieces here. One has to do with the connection from the south to the east, if you will. Think about from Savannah to Hilton Head, and make that slightly larger. Okay. And there's one alternative that is in there, which would be to connect from 46, which is to all the way out to, which would be on 46 from Buck Island to 170, which is the big circle, and then have a widening of Buck Island. But in terms of talking to the staff, in terms of talking to Bluffton, that's one that would be is not attractive because it would take a lot of traffic into the more historic district. Another piece that is a possibility in all of this is the so-called 5B. You may remember this was in, I think, the 2006 referendum that we ran out of money. We always left it in front of us in case there was other state money that could be found, but that has not been found. It's also one that's politically sensitive in terms of that some of the local residents do and don't want it. And then there's two other pieces of it. One would be what I would call the connectors to the west and the north. And you can think about that on 170 running from 278 up to 462. And LATS has done a study on that, and as in near-term, mid-term, and long-term sections of that, we have approved the design for the near-term piece, and that contract is underway. The other would be whether or not 278 needs to be widened from 170 through Jasper County out to I-95. Clearly that's outside the county, but it's where we as a county are very dependent on that, and if it starts to exceed capacity, it may be something that we have to consider being part of the funding equation. In terms of funding strategies for these, I think these are ones that Generally, we need to have conversations with the delegation, DOT, potentially the State Infrastructure Bank. In terms of the 5B piece, it would be a prime candidate to do something under the infrastructure bill that's coming through Congress, we guess. But it has been previously permitted and starts to look like something that's relatively shovel-ready. And again, if we were to look at going from 170 out to I-95 and whatever happens along 462, those are roads that are federal roads and South Carolina roads, so obviously there's a lot of dialogue with them. And I think we need to partner in some form with Jasper and Hardyville, in this. The next page, please. This would be the kind of a view then of the overview south of the Broad, and under the arterials, it's just recapturing what I had on the first page. Then there's a series of local potential roads, and again, to Brian's point, many of these may fall by the wayside, change that would influence what the per capita cost and the vehicle mile costs are. But it's a number on the order of 374 if we exclude that section that I previously talked about on going from basically 46 from 170 up and up through Buck Island and connecting to 278. Now, because high impact fees in these areas that are going to help, potentially other funding because of the growth. Clearly, there's pressing requirements that are on us, and if you look at how it breaks out, it's about 48% widening, 27% access management, and 21% new roads. So, if 50% of the of an 8-year referendum was allocated, that'd be about $180 million. A lot of justification on growth, but again, a little bit up to the south of the Broad folks as to whether they like it. The last page would be, and this is kind of really a what if. Don't take the numbers for what they're. I just stuck some numbers in to be refined, but it does strike me that south of the Broad, we're fairly heavily dependent on a referendum. I think impact fees are going to contribute, probably get some from the Fed, some from the state, some from the county, hopefully get some from Jasper and Hardyville to add up to that 374. Strong support from Bluffton be required if we do this. If you look at north of the Broad, again, a referendum funding would be a big piece, but I think some of the other ones, tend to be a little bit smaller, so it actually leaves a very large number, that 528, which would be the ones that, even with some of those fundings, we still have probably got to do a lot of trimming, coming back to Brian's point. So my thought process is that, bring everybody up to date, let the staff do their thing for the next couple of months, obviously have interface with their counterparts in the municipalities and the state, and come back to us before year end with a more definitive proposal on whether we should or shouldn't have a referendum, and if so, what it would look like and how long we might have it for. So that's kind of my thought process. Let me just open up for discussion and comments as we move this continue with staff, which we've already directed them to do, but just continue doing this. So open it up for any comments or conversation at this point. I know I threw a lot at you real quickly. Bjork?
Nobody else want to talk. Let me do this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you, whether all of these projects actually take off or not, that's a whole different story, but at least it allows for discussion at this time, and inclusion. And just recently, there was a bottleneck on St. Helena, where MLK and Sea Island Parkway merges. It got me to start thinking that something may have to be done in that area. And I just want the staff to look at that to see what are some of the possibilities. Community several years ago refused to allow for 5-lane on St. Helena. And I think I need to stay within that spirit that 2-3 lanes is permissible, and let's see what we can do, particularly around the area what I call the corner community, which will be from St. Helena Elementary School, the east side of that, to probably the post office, which would be the western side. Seeing what can be done in that area to improve traffic, and if we need to start looking at alternative routing, let's go ahead and plan for that now so that we can sort of carve out that section. So I just want staff to kind of just, there's nothing in the near future, but the staff to start looking at and start planning for some consideration for that area of St. Helena. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments?
If I might,
Yes, Brian.
absolutely. Thank you for roughing this up to give us something to talk about in relation to this whole project. I think that as we move forward, clearly we'll see the numbers at least north of the Broad start to change and come down a little bit. There's some of the things that are clearly just not necessary. Maybe off the top of my head, the Paris Island to Trask Parkway, the actual Highway 21. It's already 4 lanes. There might be some improvement, in certain sections of it, as far as access management and crossovers, maybe a light or two along the way. And then also 21 through the downtown area of Beaufort. I doubt very much you'll see. We actually took away recently, within memory, took away 4 lanes and brought it down to 2 lanes through that section. It would include Carteret and Boundary Street. So I doubt that there's much improvement that there would be any kind of cause to make people vote for it. But there are some projects on there that are clearly worth talking about. I go back to the list. I don't have it right in front of me. But there are a couple projects clearly north of the Broad that are warranted at this time, probably overdue already. It gives us something to talk about, and good luck to staff trying to whittle it down until it gets to be something that is doable with a referendum to at least give the voters a choice. I think given what's on the list right now, you wouldn't get a lot of support. There wouldn't be very much support for Beaufort County residents to be asked to pay for any improvements in Jasper County. And quite frankly, I don't think we've exhausted the reliance or the request to the state to step up for their responsibility for their roads within Beaufort County. But thank you for bringing up the topic. Chair.
Thank you. Larry, did I see your hand? I guess that was a no. Okay, any other comments? Jared, do you have any comments on it? Okay. Well, let's leave it at that. One other thing, I think, as the staff looks at it, there's 2 pieces of when we do a referendum. One would whether when we need to do it. Would we start in 22, start in 24? And I think the other piece is how long it might run. And when I originally started thinking about this, I just naturally assumed we might do it in 4-year chunks. But as Jared has pointed out, that we actually have very low interest rates now. Construction costs are rising faster, and it's actually maybe a good time, if we do one, to actually look out for a longer period of time. So I've started to come around to his way of thinking that longer rather than shorter, may be something to seriously consider. So, Okay, I think that, one other thing on this, we do need to interface with LATS on this. Mayor Solka and I have talked about that. Perhaps we'll do something at the August meeting, just to start to prioritize projects. And I think I also learned recently that some of the stuff that we're suggesting go to the state and the Fed for funding, it has not been in the pipeline for to the state and the Fed, and so we've got to play a little bit of catch up there if we're going to be asking for dollars from those two entities. So, okay, that brings us to our executive session. And I do need a motion for us to go into the executive session for legal advice. And Tom had detailed what those items were. So need a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any objection? If not, we will go into, without objection, we'll go into executive session, and then we'll come back out and do the rest of our agenda. And by doing these two things, I think we can accommodate our outside visitors. Don't go away. Okay, we're back in regular public facilities. And we have no action items coming out of the executive session. Our next item is number 7, which is the county facility 10-year plan. And just a little bit of background on that. Jared's going to take us an introduction to that, but they've completed their work. And what we thought made sense was to actually just have an introduction to it and then come back probably in a couple of weeks and schedule a session where we can go through it in some detail. That gives people an opportunity to study it ahead of time. And so Jared's around. We'll let him, he's coming.
It's actually me.
It's you. You're
I'm actually doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Yeah, so back in,
Background on that. Jared's going to take us an introduction.
All right, that was Dave Wilhelm, not me.
back in July 2020, Creech and Associates began a comprehensive space needs assessment and master plan for the county. The county owns 104 facilities. That study and what you will see assessed 52 buildings of the 104 facilities. In 2020, our department staff here at the county employed 1,389 employees. The space needs assessment also included 53 county departments that currently reside in approximately 600,000 square feet of building space. The projected 30-year plans that you will see when we send this out later today is based on population trend, identifies a county employee growth of 60% over the next 30 years, which will take us to 2,277 employees, and with a 100% need of additional space totaling 1,200,000 square feet. So our square footage over the next 30 years is projected to double, and our population for employees will almost double during that time. The cost of the master facility plan that you will see will total $300 million. Jared will send this out later today to you all to give the draft copy. There are a lot of properties in there, a lot of concepts in there that we know will change, and concepts that we will not do or entertain. But this is a rough draft. We wanted to get it into your hands as requested by Councilmember Flewellen to give you ample time to review the study, so that when we do a workshop that you all will be able to ask questions about it and not having seen the study for the first time. So it's a very comprehensive analysis of our current situation and our future needs. Creech and Associates did a really good job. Jared did a great job. Mark Rosenau and all the staff members that participated in the study did an excellent job with coming up with a set of recommendations in that. But again, we understand that it will need to be tweaked, that it will need to change somewhat, and we're certainly open to having that discussion with the council at the appropriate time. And that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Well, if you have any questions also about either the path forward, of whether or not a workshop a couple weeks out is a logical way for us to start to digest this fairly comprehensive document, which you'll have a chance to review for a couple of weeks till we get to that point. Any thoughts on the process, path forward? Okay. Let's move on. Jared has an update for us on a couple of items. Keep us up to speed.
Thank you, Chairman Rodman. Just a couple things going on in the engineering division. We have a couple things listed A through D, but before I even get there, just a couple other things. One is airports. As we all know, there's been a lot of traffic to our airport there in Hilton Head. John Rimble has been working with multiple folks, as from the TSA to the aircraft carriers and all, to facilitate some short-term improvements. He's actually worked with TSA, and they have identified a piece of security hardware. I believe it's that one where you gotta put your hands over your head. And they are going to move that into the TSA security line here coming soon. So we've done a little bit of construction and are working through that to make space for that. and hopefully that'll help some of the weight at the lines there. One interesting note at the airport is in the month of June, there was more traffic, passenger traffic that passed through our airport than in the entire year of 2017. So we passed over 54,000 passengers through our airport, of which it's only been improved by about 1,800 square feet. So you can definitely understand there is need for improvement at the airport, which we're all working towards on our terminal improvements. A couple other projects, things that where staff's working on that.
Was there any, is that a special month, or you think that's going to be the?
During our busy season, the summer times, that looks like the trend. Yes. March.
It is seasonal, yeah.
Yeah, and the seasonal has expanded too. Seasonal used to be kind of May through August, and it seems like each year it's getting sooner and sooner, all the way, it started kind of picking up in March of this year. But yeah, May was really heavy, and we expect July to be just as heavy or heavier. So, a couple other things that we're working on that will be coming to PFC in the near future. We've put out a RFQ for a boat landing master plan study to take a look at all of our facilities and then help us come up with a master plan, what we should improve, a priority list of those improvements. So we've had some proposers make comments to that, and we're going through that, and hopefully coming in August we'll come to PFC with a recommendation of award on that. Another thing is electric vehicles. So this has been discussion through staff and some other funding opportunities from the feds. And so as we started looking into this and what that would look like for Beaufort County, we quickly learned that we are not experts in this field and there's a lot of information to digest. So we suggested that we first hire a consultant to help us with strategize what this would look like for us. So we are working currently on an RFQ for a electric vehicle consultant to help us with that process. So that'll be coming up here soon. Now to the scheduled events A through D. The first one is a convenience center decal system update. So as you're aware, we've had our decals in service now since January, and just like to give a quick update on kind of what those look like, and also a few other updates inside of solid waste. So online is Cindy. So Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we've got our fiscal year 21 data for hauling and disposal. Sarah, I'm not sure you're going to be able to pull up that chart.
We are. Hold on one second.
This slide is basically pulled from our solid waste and recycling board report and shows the cost of hauling for each of the 12 months and the number of containers that are pulled from the convenience centers. We started the first 6 months of fiscal year 21 with a 5.5% increase in hauling cost to the tune of $47,073. You can see that the orange bars are a little over last year's for those first few months during the same time period. In January, we started the soft opening of the decal system, and that went into effect. And since that time, we've had a 30% drop in cost associated with hauling from the convenience centers. So $290,914 were saved over the same period in FY20. If you can pull the next slide, you can see just cost. You can see the definite trend downward in January. So if you take the overage that we had the first 6 months and the savings from the last 6 months, total hauling savings is $243,841. And we had just over 1,500 less container pulls from the centers. Okay, the next slide is disposal. The disposal slide shows the cost of disposal for each of the 12 months and the total tonnage that's generated from Beaufort County. Now does not just include the convenience centers, this also includes the residential curbside that we pay for from unincorporated and from the municipalities. So the first 6 months, started with a 16.5% increase and an overage cost from last year of $265,000 and more than 6,300 tons of waste generated. If you'll go to the last slide, please. Since January, we had a 6% decrease and a savings of $106,000. So for disposal, we still were over last year by $158,000, but I think we're trending in the right direction. Just so you'll know, we've issued 48,439 decals. We plan to go into the next quarter with the last of the registrations. We're going to do a green, yellow, red system for anybody that comes into the centers now and does not have a decal. Nobody's been turned away other than contractors at this moment, but we want to make sure we get all the rest of the residents in the system. So that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Questions, comments? Sounds like we're trending in the right direction.
Let me, yeah, and I appreciate Ms. Carter with the extension for the disposal. In my district, if you, after 2 months, before the third month is over with, if you still have a problem with people not getting the decal for whatever reason, could you just email me those names and let me follow up on it? Because what I don't want to see happen is that in October, when we go into the full implementation of the decal system, that we start seeing garbage out in the community. So if you don't have everybody signing up, just let me have a nice list of those names and see whether I can reach out to them and work things through. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Other comments? Not seeing any, okay.
So just to reiterate one thing on that green, yellow, red. So right now we're kind of in a soft opening, so nobody's being turned away. And what we're talking about with the green, yellow, red is that starting in August 1st, if somebody shows up to the center and they do not have a decal, we're going to issue them a green decal, green paper that is good for the month of August. And in that, we're going to take their information again and try to get together and process a decal for them. Then come the month of September, they come to the center and still don't have a decal. We're going to take that green decal away and give them a tangible yellow decal. And again, they've got time and to coordinate with the county staff to get that decal. And then lastly, they have one last chance in October to come if we're going to take that yellow decal away and give them a red decal. For the last final tangible opportunity to get your decal in place. And then on November 1st, if they show up and don't have a decal, they'll be turned away.
Sounds like a soccer game. Joe, did I miss your hand? I apologize.
Yeah, I was just going to make the comment, to Cindy and Jared. Obviously, this particular year, we've had a tremendous turnover of properties. Are we seeing a lot of people suddenly applying for decals?
We have had a significant turnover, and even people that had a decal sold their property, and a new owner has reapplied, and those are going very smoothly.
Okay.
And those two, we got to 35,000 really quickly, which was our expected number of decals that we would be issuing. And then they've been kind of steady since then. So now we're seeing that turnover. So we're going to have a steady flow pretty much from here on out through the decal system.
Jared, have you given them an update on other jurisdictions reaching out to us?
No, but I made mention of it in the past, but we have had other jurisdictions, both in-state and out-of-state, as far as, I believe, New Jersey. Cindy, is that correct? Somewhere up north. Asking about our decal system. So I don't know how they're getting the intel, but the word is getting out, and that they've tried to implement a similar system and haven't figured out the technique. So we're working with those on an individual basis as they ask us, but who knows, we might my trademark.
Joe's probably talking up with his friends in New Jersey.
That's right. All right, so a few other things before we get into the actual agenda items, just an update for you. One is the sales tax update, item B, and then also I'm going to take item D as well, the funding for 278. Those kind of go hand in hand. So just on our quarterly, this is a quarterly update on our 2018 sales tax. So to date, we have collected just over $100 million out of the $120 million. So that's through fiscal fourth quarter fiscal 2021. It's intended that by the end of the year we will have reached the $120 million for the program. As far as the pathways, the Aljoy virtual public meeting is being held through the end of the month of July, so July 1st, July 30th. So if you want to participate, you can still make comments on that project at BeaufortCountyPenny.com/meetings. Our Rebo Road sidewalk and Bluffton Parkway connections are both finalizing right-of-way right now, and they'll be hopefully out to bid for construction this fall. And then all other approved pathways and sidewalks are currently on schedule and going through the planning and surveying and design process. The Ladies Island Transportation Improvement Project, the program has applied for the RAISE grant. We had a deadline earlier in the month of July. We applied for a $25 million grant towards that project to go towards the mainline corridor on 21 and 802. So we'll cross our fingers on that and see what comes of that. We've also been in collaboration with the City of Beaufort and Beaufort County staff and Ladies Island Middle School to determine the preferred option for the Ladies Island Middle Access Road. So we're moving forward with that project now, and that'll give us connectivity on the northeast quadrant of the Sands Point 20 and US 21 intersection. And lastly, with the Ladies Island plans is the Airport Frontage Road and the Meadowbrook Drive extension are currently finalizing their construction plans, and right-of-way efforts are about to commence, and we'll hope to be going out to bid on both of those projects by the end of the year. And lastly, 278. So on July 7th, a 45-day public comment period was started and will run through August 22nd. This past Saturday, DOT hosted a community meeting for the Stony community members to discuss the project plans. It was well attended. On Thursday, DOT will host the public hearing that we've been waiting for at the Island Rec Center from 2 to 7 p.m. Verbal comments will be received at 6 p.m. And if you're interested, you can choose to speak and sign up on the website, the project website at www.scdot278corridor.com. So that's the updates.
Jared, what do you mean by 6 o'clock comments?
So the public hearing is basically an information center, and you can come and they have all the displays up. So you can come anytime from 2 to 7, but at 6 p.m., those people that have wished to make a verbal comment are going to be provided the opportunity at that time.
And who will they make those verbal comments to?
To DOT.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then just to update what happens after that. So DOT, from that point, they'll take all the comments that are received in the entire, both verbal and written, over the 45-day public hearing comment period, and they'll respond to those comments over the next 2 to 3 months. Depending on what comes out of those comments, they'll have to go back to Federal Highway to either get what's called a FONSI, a finding of no significant impacts, of which then they can move forward with the project, or if there are significant impacts, they've got to overcome those impacts and then at that point come back to Federal Highway. So that's kind of after this, that's the next step in the 278 project. So,
and as long as we stay in the corridor, once approved, we can modify the design based upon funding and other things.
That is correct. So right now, in order to get approval to go to the next stage, is we have to first hit this public hearing, which we're doing. Secondly, go to the FONSI, which would be the next step if everything is found sufficient. And then there's opportunities to modify and tweak the design throughout the design period, as long as it stays in the preferred and approved corridor by by federal highway.
And if we don't stay in the corridor, how long will that delay the project?
So we basically have to start the environmental process over, and it'll add 12 to 18 months to the project if we don't qualify it as no significant impacts. So, one other note as far as the funding on 278. So as you've probably seen in the documents, either online on DOT's website or through the newspaper, the reasonable alternative has been put out there for consumption, and the cost has seemed to appear to go up to $290. $290 is, they were looking at a window from about $220 to $350. So any of these 6 alternatives that they were looking at were in that range. What had been committed up to that point was $240 million. The $240 million was made up of $80 million from the county 2018 sales tax program, $40 million from DOT's bridge replacement program, and then $120 million from the SIP grant that we were successful in obtaining. So that was the 240. So now with the preferred alternative, the engineered cost on that is approximately $290 million. And in order, again, to get to the public hearing and to get a checkoff from federal highway, we have to show reasonable availability of those funds. So DOT was able to show that by showing what we had previously shown in our SIB application, as well as looking at the cost of their bridge replacements, which their $40 million is attributed to the one of the 4 bridges they will be replacing. But based off the cost estimates, their cost estimate has increased from $40 million to $65 million to that span. So all in all, this is the funding that is accounted for inside of that $290 million, and I'll read it out. So again, $80 million is from the county sales tax, $120 million is from the SIB application, and now $65 million is from the DOT bridge replacement fund. The other funds include $12.3 million from Beaufort County impact fees, $9 million from Beaufort County GEO bonds towards the Jenkins Island roadway improvements, $4.2 million from federal guide share funds, which are through LATS and LCOG. And then the last $3.3 million is from the town of Hilton Head right-of-way dedication. So altogether, it's a total value of $293.8 million that are available for the project, which fits within the $290 million that is estimated for the preferred alternative. So that's all the updates on the sales tax program in 278, and I'll gladly take any questions or comments.
You know, when the process started, there was the possibility of what's called an environmental impact statement, I think. My sense is that that's off the table at this point in time, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, so what DOT's gone through over the last several months has been part of the environmental assessment project. What they've done is basically, they're more than the basic. There's 3 levels in that process. There's the basic, the mid, and then the long range. We basically, because we're pretty much in the same corridor, been able to justify that we're in the middle of that environmental process. If we can't stay in that process, then we have to go to the full process, which is the 12 to 18 months additional environmental work.
Okay, good. Any questions or comments?
Quickly, you said the 12 million, the first one is coming from where?
12.3 from our Beaufort County impact fees.
Impact, that's right. Okay. Thank you.
And these were all part of the SIB application that were previously provided.
No, at one point, we had to update something with the SIP. Is that something we still have to do?
So we're still in coordination with the SIB to finalize that $120 million. We just have to finalize the paperwork that goes along with that. So, and they wanted to do that after we got through the public hearing.
Okay. Lastly, the littering?
So the littering is something that came up at previous meetings. So just to bring back up to you all, right now we have a littering crew of 3 people. We have a supervisor and 2 guys, and they do full-time littering. So if there is an issue that's identified or we notified of a dumping, that's illegal dumping that's taking place, those guys are going and taking care of it. Since that got instituted a couple years back, I think they've dramatically improve what we've seen out there on our local roadways. I think we all can agree on that. So there's been some discussion at previous meetings of whether we should continue to improve that effort and put more resources towards that. So if we did that, what would that look like? And in order to install another crew, we would need a 2-man crew and the associated capital vehicle and stuff that goes with that. So that is not included in our current budget, but it's something that we can talk about for further considerations. But just something to bring back since it was talked about at a previous meeting, and we'll let you guys talk from there.
Do they have a sense of whether they can keep up with the litter that's out there?
Well, I guess that's up to interpretation. Yeah.
Okay. Comments? I think Paul had brought this up at one point as to whether we needed to expand it. So any comments on that?
If I might, Mr. Chairman, they are doing a great job, and I really appreciate their efforts, knowing that I can go on Beaufort County Connect and pinpoint an illegal dumping or an accident. Sometimes stuff blows off a truck. We all know that happens. And so I appreciate that, and I think they're taking the biggest bite out of the apple. But to really get down, literally in this sense, down into the weeds to get this stuff, I think it really is advisable for us to at least plan for another crew in the near future, and any changes in our current year budget that would allow us to take advantage of of purchasing another vehicle and putting 2 new people on as a crew. I think we really should do that. It makes a big impact on what we see.
Okay.
Yeah, I will echo those sentiments. 170 between 278 down to Argent used to be handled by a crew from Riverbend. That was disbanded because of safety issues. So there's nobody that picks up litter there. That section is also where the major vehicles come carrying the garbage going to the landfills, and a lot of that spills out onto the roadway. So there is a definite need for another crew in the future.
Okay.
We'll evaluate that.
Other comments?
We can evaluate that as staff and also provide a cost estimate of what that crew and truck vehicle needs would be for decisions.
I would join Brian and Joe. I do think putting our best foot forward in the county probably, I was surprised we get by with 3, frankly. So let's leave it with staff when you all see that it's appropriate. I do think there's a sense of those that spoke that it's probably a good idea. Okay, anything else for Jared?
Yeah, Jared, I'm gonna go back to the boat landing evaluation. Question, when you gave the report about a month or so ago, the question of ownership came up. So as you're moving forward to improvement, is that gonna be an issue for some of those boat landing that's in question right now?
We'll be bringing that report to you all here in the near future. Brittany Ward is working on that with Neil Desai. They are putting together all of the things that need to be put together for us to come back to tell you what the process needs to be done and followed for each individual boat landing to get your direction on whether or not you want us to pursue that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Larry.
I want to circle back to Jared's opening when he was talking about the airports. Are you able to discuss or give us any information about the improvements or developments at the Ladies Island Airport with regard to the increased volume of fuel sales and the resulting profit from that venture, and any plans or discussions that may be taking place with regard to adding additional hangar space on that airport that may be used for rental space for small aircraft?
Sure. So first off, the airports act independently of one another. So profits made at Hilton Head can't be used at Beaufort and vice versa. So
They can or can't?
Cannot,
Okay.
they're separate. Yep.
Okay.
So at Beaufort Executive Airport, yeah, they have been selling more fuel than they had planned in previous, so that's been a great source of revenue. And the next biggest need out there in improvement is hangar space. So we are working to try to figure out a method, but the biggest issue in developing that is capital. So even though we're making more or selling more fuel, we don't have enough capital, don't have a plan in place to build those buildings as of yet. Because once we build the buildings, that in itself is another source of revenue that can be used for further capital improvement. So that is our biggest need out there at the airport is hangar space, and we're trying to figure out a plan of attack for that.
Can that hangar space be developed through a private-public partnership, or does the public have to fund it separately and distinctly?
No, it can be, and we're looking at all possibilities, whether that's a public or public-private or whatever that may look like. So we're looking at anything that's available.
And I'll just, we are doing that with great enthusiasm, are we not?
Yes, very much indeed. We don't do anything in the engineering division without great enthusiasm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's a good segue into John Rimbaud joining us. You may want to add a couple things to what Jared had to say relative to where we are, and then we got a couple items of business to take care of for John. John, any update, any added comments on the airport and the good work you're doing to handle the excess business that we're experiencing?
Yeah, just that everything we're doing at the airport is done with maximum enthusiasm. So.
That's right. Focus, discipline, and energy, right?
Exactly. But in all seriousness, the Councilman McCallum's question, it definitely is a need out of Beaufort Executive Airport. And we're actually working with a few private entities now. We put a lease document out for review last fall, and we've had a couple of parties developing a plan for development out there. So we'll see that it's probably going to be a mix, starting out with maybe some box-type hangars. We're trying to free up the piece of property that would be used for key hangars, which is standard, put the smaller airplanes into, usually build about a 12 key hangar under a single roof. The land that would be used for that is currently the septic drain field. So we've executed a sewer connection project out there. It's not quite complete. We're waiting on the final permit from DHEC so that we can tie everything in and then open up that land for development. So it's moving in the right direction.
Great.
Okay, we've got items 9 through at least 11, maybe 12 if those are in your bailiwick. John, you might walk us through those and maybe we'll vote on them all together if that's acceptable to the committee.
Okay, these should be pretty straightforward. The first one, item number 9, is a work authorization for Talbot Bright Ellington, and they are our airport consultants. This is a design and bidding contract for runway and taxiway strengthening project that is needed in the next few years. And this is currently, we haven't received a grant offer yet, but there's a grant offer out there in the FAA's office. It's on its way to us, and that's 100% funded. So that usually it's a 90% FAA grant, and then we pick up 5%, and the state picks up the last 5. In this case, this will be 100% funded by the FAA, so it'll save the airport and the state that funding. So that is, like I said, a design and bidding contract, and that's for $531,242. So that's the first item.
Any questions for John on that item? Okay, next one.
Okay, and the next one is along the lines of what Jared was just talking about with the fuel sales at the Beaufort Executive Airport. We are our own fixed base operator, or FBO, and every few years we do rebid the opportunity for someone to provide, to sell fuel to the airport, and then the airport resells that fuel at a profit. So we did put that opportunity out for a bid back in the spring. We reviewed, we had three good responses to that, and the review committee has selected Campbell Fuel, or Campbell Oil, and they're a group out of Elizabethtown, North Carolina, and they've got a very large southeast footprint and influence. And they had several items that made them very attractive to us at the airport for providing the fuel to us. So that is who the airport is recommending that we purchase the fuel for resale. That's aviation fuel or avgas as well as Jet A.
Okay.
The way we run that is we estimate the annual purchase of that fuel. And in this case, it's for $375,000. And then of course, it's a profit item. So we purchase the fuel, but then we resell at a profit.
And this is one of those items we've talked about when we redo our purchasing authorizations. It may not need to come to council, given the nature of it's basically a material buy for profit. Any comments on this one for John? Questions? Okay. Your renewals, we had two other renewals for you.
Right. The last two are just contract renewals. The first one is Volair. I just want to make sure that gets corrected when the minutes go in. The R and the I should be reversed, so it's AIRE at the end of Volair there. And Volair handles our air service development consulting as well as some marketing support. And so that's an annual $53,400. And then Securitas Security provides our additional security outside of the terminal building, and they help to move the vehicular traffic along as well as refereeing the cordial discussions between taxi cab drivers, Uber people, passengers, and everybody else out in front of the Hilton Head Island Airport.
Occasionally have a fist fight. Okay, is 12 years to talk about also, John? On the intergovernmental agreement?
No, that's separate.
That's separate? Okay. So if there's no objection, let's take 9, 10, and 11 together, which are the ones that John has highlighted for us. They're fairly routine. Is there a motion to approve these?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Larry.
I'll second.
York's got a second on it. Any further discussion on any of these? Any objection to any of these? Seeing none, these three stand approved as submitted without objection. Number 12, intergovernmental agreement.
That one comes back to me. So this is an IGA that the county has with City of Beaufort on the airport frontage road back to Ladies Island as part of our sales tax program. And as we've been working on this project and the design and development and coordinating with the city, we recognized something that we needed to update and change. So this is in regards to the right-of-way acquisition. This was an agreement that was in place prior to much of our staff and much of their staff being there. So the change is that they are pursuing the right-of-way for the first parcel, and then the county will be purchasing the right-of-way for the remainder's parcel as part of the sales tax program. Also in the IGA is that the city would be maintaining the road after construction. One thing to note that we probably need to update is that in the document it classifies this as a clarification to the existing IGA, and it actually would be a change. It's something, so we'll make that note as you guys discuss that. If it gets approved, we'll update that prior to county council meeting.
Okay. Comments or questions on this particular item? Okay. Look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
York, second.
I will second it.
Thank you, Joe. With any objections? Okay, this stands approved without objection. That takes us to our last agenda item, which is item 13, landscaping maintenance.
Yes, so this is a contract for landscaping and maintenance. This was a section of roadway that was added on 278 in the medians there. This was a section that previously had been planted and submitted and coordinated by encroachment permit by others, with the understanding that the county would take ownership and maintenance of those said plantings at the expiration of their warranty, 2-year warranty period. that warranty has now expired, so it's time for us to maintain it. Rather than us maintain it with our internal forces, we have elected to go out to bid. This is, as you can imagine, in the median, so it's not the same as maintaining a facility, a county building facility. So it's something that we thought better that would, if we had a contracted force to help maintain these medians for us. So we have this, we put it out to bid and received bids back. And this would be to Greenery bid. They provided a bid of $236,892. And this would be fully encompassed in the budget inside of Public Works, which has a budget value of $600,000. So staff recommends the award of this project to the Greenery.
Okay. Questions or comments on this? And some of you I can't see, so if I can't call on you, just speak up. Okay, look for a motion.
I will make the motion.
Okay. Second?
I think Larry should make the second.
We don't need to let this die for lack of a second. So, does anybody want to make second?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Okay. Is there any objection to this expenditure? Seeing no objection, this stands approved as without objection. That takes us to citizen comment. Do we have anybody who is still with us that wants to speak, or?
No, sir. I do want to acknowledge the citizen comments that were emailed to you all earlier, and they'll be a matter of record. They'll be in the minutes.
Okay, good. Lastly, just as kind of a wrap-up, I might just look briefly at where we are on our objectives for the year. They're on the first page on the left-hand side under our logo. And we got three of them that, the transportation one, the county facilities, and capital investment, where there's a lot of data being accumulated as to potential expenditures over the next time periods, whether they be 10 years or 30 years. I think what I kind of see in the last part of this year is kind of zeroing in on, what the funding is going to look like for each of those that can be generated at this point in time, because any plan obviously has a combination of projects and funding. On the solid waste and recycling, we anticipate in the near future staff coming forward with their thoughts on the sustainability campus, which encompasses a lot of the things we've been talking about that we want to do in solid waste. We've talked a bit about the airports, and we've had ongoing discussion on the Husky ferry. So hopefully we're making some decent progress on our 6 items, our objectives for our committee. So before we wrap up, any last minute comments from anybody?
George? Chairman, yeah. Can I get an update on the county administrative building? Grand opening date and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that?
Fourth of Horn?
Yeah, off the horn.
Yeah. We're projecting for that because of some things that we need to do to modify some staffing over there and things like that. We're looking for that to occur at the end of the calendar year, December or 1st of January. We're having to do some alterations based on courtroom sizes and things like that, and also some IT infrastructure upgrades to the building.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
One last item. We've got a couple vacancies on committees. On the Transportation Committee, we have a vacancy in District 7. On the Construction Adjustments and Appeals Board, we have 2 vacancies in the area of design, contractor, building industry. And we have 1 vacancy in the Stormwater Utility Board. That is District 8. So if it applies to you, be thinking about who you might want to put in there. And I might ask staff if you might send this back out to all the folks who can be thinking about it also. So, okay, seeing no other business, and assuming that we've handled all the business that we said we'd handle, we stand adjourned. Everybody have a good day.
Here.